I'm embarrassed to take my watch off. It's like the beginning of the summer and you can see such a terrible tan line. Hey, it's Amy. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about if GPS watches are worth it for runners. I'll dive into some pros and cons of having a watch and what I currently train in. There are so many different watches out there. I'm not going to go into specific details of each watch because that would be another video or several videos, but I'm going to just share my thoughts on watches and if it's worth runners getting one. So let's talk about watches. If you're just getting into running, it can be overwhelming and a bit pricey to get correct pair of running shoes, clothes, and then this thing that goes on your wrist. Especially if you don't know if you're going to race or even continue running at all. I feel like it's important to think about what exactly you want a watch to do for you or what you're going to use it for if you want to get one at all. So let's talk about the pros of getting a watch. The metrics are the best. So for example, pace, distance, time, heart rate. There's other ones, but those are kind of like the main ones. Let's start with distance. It's so convenient having something telling you how far you've already gone, especially if you want to hit a specific distance. Don't get me wrong, you can definitely map it out before you go running and have it all planned out so you can do exact distance, but personally I just don't have time to do that. When you're following a specific training plan, often there's specific distances that you're supposed to hit or to run. Watches really help this as it keeps track of how far you run. When you're just getting into running, you don't want to run too far, and if you just go blindly out for a run, you could end up running really far and it could be not great for your body. Anyway, having the distance shown on my watch is very helpful. Another metric is pace. If you're just getting into running, pace isn't something you need to be super concerned with. It can also show improvement. A pace that used to be a little harder eventually will become easier, and you can kind of see, wow, this 6-minute pace is now fairly easy and I used to struggle doing that. If you consistently run, your paces will eventually get easier or get faster. That's without doing speed workout, just from your aerobic system getting more efficient and your muscles getting stronger, but that's another video. For my own training, I want to hit specific paces, and my watch gives me those paces. There's specific paces like my marathon pace, half marathon pace, 10K pace, etc. that I want to be able to run and race in and train in, and so I need to be able to see what pace I'm going. Another metric is heart rate. Heart rate is a metric that both beginner runners and advanced runners can take notice of. Heart rate can tell us a lot of things. It can tell us if we're getting sick or even how we're recovering, or it can tell us when we're pushing, say, an easy run too hard. One of the first things I noticed when I got pregnant is that my heart rate was like 10 beats faster than normal. This was both running and resting heart rate. I mainly look at my heart rate during easy runs, as I want to keep my heart rate below a certain number, and if I'm going over that number, it means that I need to pull back a little bit. Because if I'm going too hard on my easy run, it kind of defeats the purpose of an easy run or recovery run. And heart rates depend on your age, your gender, your fitness, and all these factors that make everyone's specific heart rates different. My resting or active heart rate is different than my husband Liam's because we are different sizes. But back to easy runs. If you run all your easy runs or recovery runs at a hard, fast pace, you're never going to recover. You eventually might get burnt out and not want to run anymore, or even worse, get injured. As their name suggests, easy runs are supposed to be easy, and recovery you're supposed to recover on, and if you push yourself and not recover, then what's the point? Personally, I want to make sure I'm recovered so I can really nail the paces on the runs that where it counts, like on my speed or my long runs. Along with the pace, the distance, your heart rate, you also can have the time or like a timer going on your watch. This is important if you're a runner who does time-based workouts or just time-based runs instead of distance. I like having those metrics, and the timer is great, though if you pause your watch, the timer stops, so it doesn't really tell you exactly like how long you've been out continuously, but that's okay. It's just nice to have like a general kind of idea of how long I've been out for. I don't do time-based like easy runs, but workouts definitely, but it's just nice to know like, oh, I've been out for 40 minutes, so etc. Another metric that's really cool about your watch is recovery. After a run or a workout, my watch usually pops up and says, fuel recovery time 24 hours, or one day it was like 72 hours. This doesn't mean you can't go for a run or do anything, but it's just like a general guideline or suggestion that you don't do a hard effort until you've recovered, which is very accurate. Very, very rarely do you want to do back-to-back hard efforts. That's just asking to get injured. Sometimes my watch actually pops up with a message saying, recovery time improved after your restful day. Thanks, Garmin. That doesn't always happen, but you can improve your recovery time, not just like with time, but with being restful. I also wear my watch to bed, so it gives me a sleep score in the morning and just tracks how much I sleep. And when Luke was first born, my watch was like, you need to sleep more, you need to sleep more, terrible sleep score. I'm like, I know, I really would love to sleep more. And I would also like look at how little I slept, and it was a little depressing, but it was just nice to have like an idea of how much I'm sleeping. And it gives you like when you're in a deep sleep, REM cycle, all that fun stuff too. So yeah, I like wearing it all the time. And thankfully now we're sleeping more, it makes such a difference. Another really cool pro about having a watch is that you can program workouts and maps and some really cool things like that. I've already done a video on that, so check out that video after this one if you don't know how to do that. I also have a few other Garmin videos about how to use Garmin Connect and just get the most out of your watch and all these training metrics, etc. So again, I'll have all the links below. Okay, there are a few cons to having a watch. The first one is being too obsessed with what your watch is telling you. This means like you're completely ignoring what your body is saying and just listening to what this is saying. I believe it's super important to be able to run by feel and not just relying on what your watch is saying. If you ignore your body, especially during a race, your heart rate's really high and you're breathing heavily and it's only kilometer 1 of your marathon, you might be in trouble. Especially if you just keep pushing and you're like, I want the specific pace, and your body's like, I can't hold this right now today because of X factor, and please slow down. And if you don't, you might blow up and not finish the race or have a terrible rest of your race. Trust me, this has happened to me, and it was an awful, awful time of just walking and eventually being sick, and yeah, not fun. Or during workouts, if you ignore your body, if there's like niggles or just something not feeling great and you just ignore your body and keep pushing to get that pace and don't slow down, and then you could actually get injured. Or if you're coming back from an injury and you ignore kind of what's happening with your body and try to just jump back into a pace that you want to do, again, you could delay your injury, you could delay your recovery even more. Don't get me wrong, I love following a pace, and I think it's a great idea just to be able to like aim for something, but not at the expense of not listening to your body. I got really good at this, especially when I got pregnant. I had to just basically listen to my body, and I knew exactly if I had overdone it, I was sore or really tired, and I'm like, oh, I guess I have to run less or not run quite as hard. Especially long runs, I would feel like pretty sore the next day if I did too much, so I would just slowly use that as a guide to shorten my runs. But yeah, even if you're not pregnant, I still think it's super important to listen to your body and what it's telling you. What I mean, some days your bodies will feel great and the paces will feel easy and be flying, and other days, because maybe of stress, lack of sleep, illness, and so on, your body's just might not be able to do exactly what you want it to do or what you know it's capable of. And that can be frustrating, I totally get it. I'm not saying to not go for it in workouts and try to hit a pace, but also I'd rather have a consistent like pace during my workout rather than going super hard, super fast in the first rep and then die the rest of it. I think it's not beneficial, and it's way better to be consistent and train your body to hold these paces rather than just like blow it all in the first time. For me, a successful workout is when I can hit the last rep like the same pace or even faster. That means I really pace myself and know my body, what I can hold, and that's really awesome. Don't get me wrong, I've definitely blown up at the end of workouts because I just didn't listen, or I just thought I could do something that I couldn't do, but at the same time, you learn your body and what it tells you after a while. You just have to listen. Another con is sometimes GPS watches aren't accurate. When I used to run downtown Toronto, especially on King Street, people who know, the GPS goes crazy. My watch would be like either telling me like 10-minute a pace or 3-minute a pace, which I was doing neither. So if you listen to your watch in those cases, like you either sprint down the sidewalk or you like slow down, which again, you know that you're not going that fast or slow, but it's just funny how the GPS just goes really wonky. Yeah, I remember looking at some runs and the GPS would like click and it'd be like 2:55 a kilometer. I'm like, yeah, pretty sure I didn't run that fast. Another thing is sometimes I think my watch is either my biggest fan or my worst critic. There was one point during my training that my watch told me that I could run a 2:42 marathon, a 34-minute 10K, a 1:15 half, etc. Well, I'm not saying I could never run those paces. At that time, there definitely was no way I was gonna run those not that fast. I guess it uses heart rate and other factors, but yeah, it was kind of funny. Watches also tell you your VO2 score, which is great, but also to get a really accurate VO2 max max score. You have to go to a treadmill and like oxygen thing and you run, and there's like a whole professional test you can do. Your watch is just telling you based on, you know, your heart rate and other factors, but I mean, it's nice to see, but it's not probably 100% accurate. As well, your heart rate, well, I love watching it and on my watch, I'm sure it's not like, again, 100% accurate. I think if you really want to be more accurate with the heart rate, you can get these like chest straps that go on your chest and they measure your heart rate a bit more accurately. I've never worn one before. I'm worried that it would like bounce or chafe, but has anyone used it? Please tell me in a comment below. Like, do you like it? Did you find it accurate? I'm just so curious. Another con is that watches are expensive. Some watches can be over $1,000, which is crazy, especially if you're just getting into running. I mean, there's so many different watches out there now, but again, some start at $200 and go very expensive, and that can be a pretty big deterrent for people to buy a watch. I mean, there's new brands like Chorus, like that's coming around, that's more affordable, and again, maybe if I had known about that when I first got my watch, I would have got one of those, but yeah, in general, watches are not cheap. Okay, so we've gone through the pros and cons of watches. I'm not here gonna tell you you have to buy a watch, but personally, I love having a GPS watch and I find it so helpful. For me, it not only gives me instant feedback that I can look back after my run and just see my heart rate and my cadence and just my pace and all that fun stuff, but also right before a race, I like going back and looking over my whole training build and seeing like what my paces were at the beginning of the build and then what they were or are right before the race. It's really cool to see kind of how paces get faster, your heart rate gets lower because you're getting more in shape, and just gives you confidence going into a race, just seeing those numbers. So if you don't have a watch, it's hard to kind of have those numbers and give that feedback. So I just think it's really helpful, especially for that. But you have to figure out what you're going to use this watch for. Are you going to use it for gym, lifestyle, and running? Or are you a trail runner or ultra runner and you need a long battery life? Are you just going for runs? Then there's all different watches that would be appropriate for what you want to use it for. So I wouldn't get like an Apple Watch for an ultra runner, and if you're doing like triathlon, there's watches that have a triathlon feature, so you just have to do a bit of research. I'm not going to go into different watches here, maybe I'll do that in another video. I personally use the Garmin 745 with music, but my very first watch was a Fitbit. It was like that thin one, I don't know what model that was, and when I went for a run I had to take my phone, which was a little annoying, but it was perfect because I was going to the gym and then also starting just to get into running. Then I won an Apple Watch. It was so cool. I love my Apple Watch almost to a fault. I could text messages and I could like text from it and email from it, and just yeah, I was like always on my watch. So I eventually sold it because after a while it would like freeze after like a 30-kilometer run and I couldn't program workouts, etc. And it just was getting in the way. I was getting more serious about running, and while I love my Apple Watch, I had to sell it, or I wanted to sell it. So I went into a store and just asked like about a Garmin watch, and I didn't do any research, which was so silly, and I got a Vivo Active 3. It was my first GPS watch and it had a touch screen, which later was very annoying, but I didn't know any better, and yeah, it was super fun having a GPS watch. Eventually I got really frustrated with it, as in the winter it's hard to hit the lap button. The lap button was actually like the touch screen, and I'd be doing workouts with my friends on the track and I'd be trying to hit the lap button and it wouldn't register. So, and the GPS, I don't think it was like the super accurate GPS, so eventually I gave that to my husband as he was starting to run and train more, and I got a Garmin, I think 635 or 645. Anyways, one of those, and I really liked it. It didn't have music or maps feature, but at that time I didn't need those features. Unfortunately, that Garmin broke right before Boston. Not stressful at all. So I decided to get this 745 because it had the triathlon feature. Not that I've done any triathlons yet, but it's something I want to do in the future, and I wanted to have the option of having a watch that had like the triathlon feature. It also has music and maps on it, which I also use now a lot more, and I'm really glad I have this watch. I kind of wish I looked more into the Chorus, but it really wasn't on my radar for a while, but now there's some really cool ones coming out, and if I ever get another watch, I think I might seriously consider like the Chorus Pace 2 or whatever model's out then. Yeah, just having something else other than a Garmin. Garmin's had the monopoly over the GPS watches for so long, so it's kind of cool seeing another brand come and maybe drive the prices lower. We'll see, but I think Chorus would be maybe a cool option. In the end, I personally think watches are a big asset for runners to have, especially if you're training for a race and you want to hit a specific time goal and all this stuff, your watch is going to really help you get towards that goal. Of course, it won't run for you. You still have to put all the time and effort in, but it is nice having something that gives you feedback. In the end though, you still have to listen to your body and what it's telling you and have that relationship with your body, but it is really nice to have something that is external. However, you are still a runner even if you don't have a watch. I'm not saying that you have to get one and yeah, that you're any less of a runner, but I just think if you put all the time and all the money you spend on shoes and like races that you travel for, why not have something that will help you get there and succeed, help you succeed, or help you work towards your goal. But yes, you are more than welcome to have your phone on your run and have that, you know, with your pace and distance and time, and completely fine. But if you do use a watch, what watch do you use and why do you love it, or why would you maybe get something different next time? Let me know in a comment below. Luke loves like playing with my watch now and he like tries to eat it all the time. It's quite funny and annoying. But yes, I love my watch and I'm really glad I have this one. I'm embarrassed to take my watch off. It's like the beginning of the summer and you can see such a terrible tan line. Oh my goodness, it's so embarrassing. Well, that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful, and I hope you are doing well and happy running, and I'll see you next time.